I'm Thomas Witherspoon of Asheville, North Carolina, and you're tuned to the International Radio Report, 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. It is Sunday, February the 2nd, 2025. My name's Sheldon. I'm here with Jill. We thank you for tuning into our show. We are here every Sunday morning with 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio. We have a lot of information packed into today's show, including some international stories from Switzerland and from Britain. And we'll get you up to date on the upcoming Super Bowl broadcasts coming up next weekend. We'll start off, though, with a reminder. If you've been tuned in the last couple of weeks, you've heard us talking about the World Radio Day, which is coming up on February the 13th. This is been proclaimed in 2011 by the member states of UNESCO and adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2012 as an international day. The theme this year is radio and climate change, and we have been encouraging radio stations. If you have local radio stations, get in touch with them and see if they're doing anything to mark the day, or maybe tell them about it. They might not be aware of it. So there are stations around the world who are planning special events, and UNESCO is keeping track of all of these. Individual stations can go and register their event online. So you can go to the website and look at a map and click on the various teardrop indicators on the map that will tell you what's going on at the various stations around the world. So radio stations have the chance to connect with other radio stations in another locality or even another country. And thanks to these collaborations, you'll be able to exchange programs, guests, sound archives, and even make long-term relationships with other stations. So we have informed CKUT here about the event, and we're hoping that something will be organized. We'll have the final details for you next week if, in fact, we are doing something here at CKUT. I guess we're doing our part by promoting it to anybody who wants to try to get one of their local stations involved. So we'll have the links up for you. And you can get all the information. There are suggestions on the website as well as to things that a radio station might do to mark the special day. So again, it's coming up February 13th, World Radio Day.
In our next story, we have Calgary police ending news media access to police radio channels, citing privacy concerns. This is by Karina Zapata, CBC News, via Leong in Calgary, Alberta. For the past several years, Calgary has been the only major Canadian city where police allowed news outlets to keep an ear on their response to criminal activity by letting them listen in on their radio chatter. But that won't be the case much longer. While some police radio channels have long been blocked from media monitoring, allowing officers to have private tactical discussions, for example, soon, none of the digital frequencies will be open to media to listen to. Media access will be revoked February the 23rd. The Calgary Police Service says it's making the change for privacy reasons and to comply with provincial privacy legislation. But critics worry the move could reduce police accountability and filter information about what's happening in their communities. Details aired on the police radio system are extremely sensitive and need to be treated as such, said a CPS spokesperson in a prepared statement. Although we have an agreement in place preventing media from using this information in the news, we cannot control who hears that information on the police radios they currently have access to. Journalists monitor the radios so they can quickly dispatch resources to possible crime or accident scenes and inform the public about what's happening. Calgary media outlets have long agreed not to report directly from the radios, requiring journalists to confirm details with officials before reporting. CPS is working on an alternative solution to ensure news outlets can continue keeping the public informed. It's developing a system where local media will be advised of potential incidents after police have determined what is happening and the scene is safe. CPS met with media last week to discuss the approach. News outlets will continue to have access to CPS media team and social media. The public also used to be able to listen to the police radio chatter until CPS moved to an encrypted radio system in 2018, giving access only to authorized media. For Brent Jolly, president of the Canadian Association of Journalists, which represents journalists across the country, the impact of such decisions goes beyond newsrooms. While he understands police concerns with privacy, Jolly said, cutting off radio access in the other cities has limited journalists' ability to examine how police operate and from holding them accountable when necessary. Once Calgary police pull the plug next month, no police radio activity in Canada's 10 biggest cities will be monitored by so-called scanners, either by the public or the media. Citing privacy concerns, Edmonton police moved to an encrypted radio system in 2021, locking out the public and the media from listening to the police radios. Regina and Saskatoon police revoked media access to their radio scanner channels in 2019. It's now been a decade since Toronto police moved to an encrypted radio system, instead keeping the media and public informed through police social media accounts. While it's generally more publicly accessible to tune into the police radio transmissions south of the border, many U.S. police departments, including New York, Chicago, and Denver, have recently encrypted their radio systems. If you're a police officer, or you're just a simple citizen, or even the media, I do believe that, yes, it's true that there could be sensitive info. I always thought there should be kind of a mixed system where some of it's public, some of it could be encrypted when you need to give really personal details, for example. But that also is a big problem in accountability. If something bad would happen, because it can, we don't really know, and we won't hear what really happens because all of that is hidden, it's encrypted. So we only have the police side of things rather than having more details with the media, maybe, intercepting some details that could help in knowing what really happened. So, yeah, it's a debate. It's something that, unfortunately, is not fun for scanner users. And here it's even worse because, I think the media access to it was probably a good idea.
Yeah, it sort of put a damper on scanner use. I mean, scanner listeners it was a really big thing for decades, but the amount of equipment that's out there now is not anywhere what it used to be. The amount of things that you can listen to in the clear has dramatically reduced. We have certain types of services that are still available, but all of the meaty stuff that people were really looking for, fire, police, ambulances, those sorts of things, pretty much everywhere, unless you're in a small town somewhere where you might have clear access to those things. The rest of the world has switched over. A lot changed in New York after 9/11. There were a lot of problems going on with the communications, and really that sort of sparked a change in how the communications were done. So the scanner world out there has gone kind of quiet. There are still units that you can pick up there, and some people are still into listening to those sorts of things, but the stuff that was attracting the most attention is pretty much gone. So try and go into a Radio Shack store, or if you have a store that sells equipment in your town or city, it's sometimes hard to find scanners anymore because the demand has really dropped off quite a lot.
Yeah.
We move to the States with our next story, and it is headlined Southern California cities. That's not sites. Southern California cities invest in AM's Travelers Information Stations, known as TIS stations. This is by Nick Langan of Radio World. January's wildfires in Southern California have underscored the need for reliable sources of emergency information. Much attention has been given to erroneous evacuation alerts generated on cellular devices in Los Angeles County, for example. The Michigan-based Information Station Specialists, a longtime supplier of Travelers Information Station systems, is calling attention to how several municipalities in the region have equipped themselves with AM radio stations to serve their communities. Calabasas, California, in the western part of LA County, operates a TIS on 1630 AM, licensed as WQIX 897. Information Station Specialists supplied the station's upgraded setup. FCC rules for the TIS service allow the broadcast of safety information to protect life and property at the discretion of local emergency managers, in addition to conventional TIS content such as traffic and travel information. Portions of the city received evacuation orders as a result of the Kenneth Fire, which spread from the western San Fernando Valley. The TIS station broadcast announcements advising residents how to orderly evacuate and where to find emergency supplies, according to Mike Dyer, Calabasas' emergency manager. Before the Kenneth Fire, the TIS station aired announcements educating residents about fire prevention, including how to protect their homes and what to pack in a go bag for potential evacuations. Under Dyer's leadership, 6 of Information Station Specialists' larger coverage radio safe stations were installed in Santa Barbara County in 2021 and 2022. The county operates Radio Ready 530 AM from the 6 locations under the license WRML 859. Baker said that 35 communities and public safety agencies across Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties are licensed to operate stations equipped by Information Station Specialists. So you've probably come across some of these stations. If you're tuning around and traveling on the road, you see signs up on the road for information stations, weather alerts, traffic, that sort of thing. Well, they can serve much greater purposes when it comes to emergency situations. So it looks like it takes major events to happen to make people realize that these stations aren't that complicated, but they can certainly get out a lot of vital information. And I was unaware that there's basically one major company that supplies all of these stations' equipment.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that. It's, you figure that there must be, because there's quite a lot of these travelers information stations all around, and it really could be very important in times of a big disaster like we've just had here in Los Angeles, for example. And this is why the next story is important, because we need to have AM radios to hear these travelers information stations. So Cruz and Markey reintroduce AM Radio Act to Senate. This is by Cameron Coates of Radio Inc. Citing the role of radio in protecting the public during the LA wildfires, Senators Ed Markey, Democrat, and Ted Cruz, Republican, have reintroduced the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act in the 119th Congress to ensure automakers continue including AM in their new vehicles at no extra charge. The legislation would direct the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to mandate AM radio as a standard safety feature in all new cars. Initially introduced in May 2023, the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act advanced through both the Senate Commerce Committee and the House Energy and Commerce Committee last year. Even with 271 co-sponsors in the House and a supermajority of 63 in the Senate, the bill was never scheduled for a vote. The 2025 version is on its way to recapturing that broad bipartisan support, with more than 40 senators already signing on as co-sponsors, including Tammy Baldwin, John Barrasso, Marsha Blackburn, Richard Blumenthal, and Bernie Sanders, among others. Markey commented, as we witness more tragic climate change-induced disasters, like the wildfires in Los Angeles, broadcast AM radio continues to be a critical tool for communications. Tens of millions of listeners across the country have made clear that they want AM radio to remain in their vehicles. Our AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act heeds their words and ensures that this essential tool doesn't get lost on the dial. Cruz remarked, during weather disasters or power outages, AM radio is consistently the most reliable form of communication and is critical to keep millions of Texans safe. AM radio has long been a haven to express differing viewpoints, allowing free speech and our robust democratic process to flourish for decades. I am honored to once again partner with Senator Markey on this bipartisan legislation on behalf of our constituents who depend on AM radio and public airwaves for access to news, music, talk, and emergency alerts, he had. The National Association of Broadcaster President and CEO Curtis Legate commented, NAB is deeply grateful to Chairman Cruz and Senator Markey, along with their bipartisan co-sponsors, for reintroducing the legislation to ensure that AM radio remains readily accessible in all vehicles. Time and again, AM radio has proven itself as an irreplaceable resource in emergencies, keeping families safe and communities informed when every second counts. Further, its diversity of programming and reach remain unique amongst all audio media. We urge Congress to move quickly to pass this important legislation and ensure Americans continue to benefit from this free life-saving service. So let's hope that it does go through. Let's hope that it is adopted. I think it is a great idea, not just for TIS stations that we just talked about previously, for the general public. I mean, we look every year when there's hurricanes, when there's disasters of any kind, we always hear about how AM radio is so important.
I was listening to KFI in Los Angeles during the fires, just their online stream, and you could really see how important it was. Total dedication to the cause, putting out vital, timely information to people who maybe didn't have any other way to get that information. A lot of other services were down, and the AM was able to get that information out.
So what's happening with our sun? Well, our sun is getting more and more active as there's a new sunspot group that is appearing. And we almost had a day without sunspot, but it didn't happen. But now there's a lot of them. And actually, today, as we're recording on Friday, a almost X-class solar flare happened from the giant sunspot AR3976. So that means that the sun today and then for the week ahead could be quite active, and who knows, maybe more of these solar flares are going to happen, so propagation could change rapidly. Sunspot number 144 and the solar flux 184. Now, if you want to witness all those changes in propagation, well, you do need a radio, and listen.
I'm David Bachner of Guelph, Ontario, and I get my weekly radio news on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Coming up next Sunday, of course, is Super Bowl Sunday. We will be on the air with our show as usual, but we thought we'd give you a little bit of advance notice on who will be covering the game on radio. Of course, most people are able to watch it on television, prefer to watch it on television, but if for some reason you're out, you're traveling around, you can't be at home, can't get to a TV set, radio is a great alternative. Here in Canada, the Super Bowl will be broadcast on the TSN radio network across Canada, including our TSN station here in Montreal on 690 AM. In the U.S., the Westwood One radio network is the service that has the broadcast rights to the game. So you can check in your area if you have an all sports station that's connected to Westwood One. You'll find the broadcast there. ESPN does not have rights to broadcast the game live, so they will be providing updates throughout the day from the game, but will not be carrying the game itself. And if you have Sirius XM, well, you'll have lots of opportunities there. They usually have a wide variety of channels covering different aspects of the game. So far, they don't have that information posted up as we're recording today. So check out their website, and we'll have any late breaking information for you on next week's program.
So we have an update on the conversion of Switzerland from FM to digital. This is an article via Radio Magazine. So when the switch last year, at the end of the year, of Switzerland going from FM to DAB, digital broadcasting, happened, something else also happened. It seems like listeners have also disappeared slightly. There's a lot of numbers that are coming out. They're not officials, but they're saying that a lot of the broadcasters for the Switzerland broadcaster itself, there was a loss of 500,000 listeners on the SRF 1, 2, and 3 channels. SRF 1 is the one that's really impacted the most, with 255,000 less listening. So it's really an interesting impact. It shows that not everybody has purchased a DAB radio to go listen to. They were saying that in together, 23.5% of the listening is kind of gone because people are just not moving to DAB like they thought they would be. There's also the channels RTS, La Première, Espace 2, Couleur 3, that have lost at least 130,000 listeners. And they were saying that those that are still, because there's still some FM analog stations and channels, they're saying that some of these channels, like Radio 1, has 50% more listeners suddenly because people just switched from their DAB that they can't listen to. They switched to whatever FM was on the band, and they went there. So this apparently is really good for analog FM. Radio Pilatus and Radio 24 also have 20 and 16% rise of listeners because they are also FM analog. So this is going to be interesting to check out because, will people eventually cave in and go buy? Apparently, there are a lot of people buying these radios, but they're saying, a lot of the FM outlets, FM stations were saying, we wonder if we shouldn't do hybrid, still continue having analog at the same time as having DAB because it's possible. They're on two different bands. But they also say that a lot of the FM analog that are eventually supposed to switch are saying, I don't want to switch anymore. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, we've seen this happen in a couple other countries where they've had some problems with the switch. You've got people with old radio equipment that they like using set up in their home or, in their car. And suddenly the stations that they were listening to are no longer accessible. Some people, they're into technology and they'll go rushing out, pick up the new radio and play with the new toy. But a lot of people just are set in their ways and they're going to say, hey, where'd my radio stations go? And, they'll tune around, land on something else that they can hear, and, that station will benefit from it.
Yep.
So, a lot to think about from the listener audience side of things, the financial side of it, advertising, a lot of things to look at. We'll probably hear more about this if this doesn't start to turn around. Our last story today is not good news, I guess. It comes from Yasmin Rufo of BBC News via Richard Langley, who passed this story along. BBC World Service to cut 130 jobs in saving plan. The BBC World Service has announced it will cut 130 jobs as part of a plan to save around £6 million in the next financial year. Planned cost savings measures include closing posts in the UK and internationally, as well as roles in BBC Monitoring, a division which reports and analyzes news from media around the world. The World Service was given a funding boost by the government as part of the autumn budget, but financial pressures and the previous 2-year freeze in the license fee means the corporation's projected total deficit will increase to £492 million for the 2024-25 financial year. Despite the cuts, it said it will continue to provide journalistic coverage across its 42 language services. Jonathan Munro, Global Director and Deputy Chief Executive of BBC News, said while the result of the latest grant-in-aid funding settlement means we're able to maintain all of our existing language services, we were clear it would not stave off difficult decisions in order to remain globally competitive and meet our savings requirements. These changes will ensure we operate effectively with the resource we have, creating the most impact for audiences internationally. The BBC added that the service is operating in a highly competitive global media environment, which has international news providers investing billions in state-backed media that sees increased competition for staff, platforms, and frequencies, and audiences. The broadcaster said it will continue to counter disinformation, provide emergency services in times of crisis, and report from all corners of the globe. As part of the budget in October, Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced that the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office settlement for the next financial year provides an increase in funding to the BBC World Service, protecting existing foreign language service provision and its mission to deliver globally trusted media in support of the UK's global presence and soft power. The BBC World Service is predominantly funded by the UK license fee and has received a grant of £104.4 million from the FCDO in previous years. So they're going to try to keep whatever they can. They will have to suffer some cuts, but their mandate is what they hope to stick to and to be able to provide the service that they've been providing for so many decades on international broadcasting bands.
So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
Coming up next weekend, we have a number of events going on the ham bands. First off, from CQ Magazine, it is a CQ Worldwide RTTY WPX Contest, 0-100 February 8th to 23:59 Zulu February the 9th. It is on 3.5, 7, 14, 21, and 28 megahertz bands, and the mode is radio teletype.
Organized by the Japan Amateur Radio League, there's the Asia Pacific Spring Sprint, CW 1100 to 1300 Zulu February 8th. Bands 20 and 40 meters only, and it's CW.
The Straight Key Contest Club is having their Straight Key Contest Weekend Sprintathon, 1200 Zulu February 8th to 23:59 Zulu February the 9th, 160 all the way through 6 meters, and that is also CW only.
The Dutch Amateur Contest Group is having the Dutch PACC Contest, 1200 Zulu February 8th, 1200 Zulu February 9th. Bands 160 through 10 meters, and it's CW and SSB.
And finally, the Keyman's Club of Japan is holding the Top Band Contest, 1200 Zulu February 8th to 1200 Zulu February the 9th. It's 160-meter band only, and the mode is CW.
And we are out of time.
Thank you for tuning in today. We are here every Sunday morning with our show. We thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to reach us by email, the address is radioreport@yahoo.com. Our show is live streaming and archived at ckut.ca, and our Facebook group is International Radio Report. We invite you to join the group. And finally, our YouTube channel, where you can listen to our shows stored there for you, along with links to the various stories that we've reported on. You can find us at youtube.com/@IRR, and we invite you to subscribe to the channel. Have a great week, everybody. We will talk to you again next Sunday on Super Bowl Sunday, and we'll out there around the world. Have a great week. Talk to you then. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.